And is there anything that you found that, if you were to do like keys to racing on the bubble and advancing, that you feel are the keys to success?
Fast cars and fast pit stops. That makes it easier. But it's just not getting too far ahead of yourself and executing as a team with most likely a competition caution at lap 30, then the stage breaks at 125 and 250. Those three opportunities to get points, stage one, stage two, in the end. And if we go out there and do our job, we've got to gain those points in the stage. That way, the end of the race isn't as much of a nail biter as it should be.
Thank you.
Our next question, Kurt, will come from Claire B. Lang. Go ahead with the question, Claire.
Thank you. Kurt, you're so good at Bristol, right? Does that lend some sort of confidence in you, or have things changed where without practice it's different? You and your brother talked about that on the airplane, but Bristol, you go back to it just being Bristol for you, right?
Yeah, I feel like anytime you can go to a track that you've had past success at, it lends to just better feelings. It lends to going through the checklist items in an easier fashion. And so, our confidence is high going into the race. We have our homework done, and now we go and race, where there's some other tracks where you're like, oh man, we didn't run so well at Kansas, let's just say earlier this year. And we've got more questions, so to speak, going into the race. So Bristol, we're ready to rip, ready to go with the Monster Energy Chevy. And we've got 7 points to the plus. And that's just kind of how we've been all year. We've been right around that 10th place position all year.
How much do you want to know during the race, knowing that Bristol is a blink of an eye, right? And how much will you just say, tell me when I ask for it kind of thing?
Well, there's so many guys in the mix. And so, wherever the points end up at the end of each stage, I'll just want the plus or the minus. And then, as we're getting closer to the final 100 laps, that's when you have to make those decisions to race the guys straight up for points and to play more of a defensive role if you have to.
Always fun to watch you race at Bristol, Kurt. Good luck this weekend, okay?
Great. Thank you.
Our next question will come from Mark Garrow. Go ahead with the question, Mark.
Kurt, sort of following up on that, 7 points. How do you look at that gap right now? Do you play offense? Do you play defense? A combination of the two? Just what kind of strategy do you look at going into a race with a 7 point, just a single digit kind of cushion?
Yeah, so far in the playoffs in 2020, we haven't finished worse than 13th in any stage, and we haven't finished any better than 5th. So that's the good news and the bad news all mixed in together. And so we just go out there again and do our job to get points in the stages. We know it's going to come down to the final little bit on who's above the line and who's not. And you can't worry about it too much. You race off the talent of the crew, the pitch strategy, the pit crew guys themselves. Everybody's got to do their job right now because it's the playoffs. It's what you do. It's what we do, and it's what we're prepared for.
Thank you.
Our next question will come from Lee Spencer. Go ahead with the question, Lee.
Thanks for joining us, champ. You feel confident just knowing that the cutoff race is in Bristol, despite anything can happen, given your past experience there? Does that kind of build your confidence going into that event?
Yeah, I enjoy Bristol. It's a track that I look forward to going to. I get amped up for. I'm ready for the challenges that Bristol brings. And the night race, getting back to the PJ1 traction compound question, you hope that it all gets burned in and that the outside lane comes into play. But each time we go back to Bristol, there's these little weird things that the track is doing that, SMI might not tell NASCAR. NASCAR might not tell SMI. And then there's the Goodyear tire that shows up with different stagger values, even though it's the same tire code. So lots of little things at Bristol all the time. But, with this being a cutoff, you got to go in there and just do it. Get the job done. Don't shy away from the pressure. Even after this round, you got to go to the Roval and advance through it to get to the round after that. Then you got to go to Martinsville, to get through that round if you're going to have a shot at the championship. I mean, this playoff format is genius for the anxiety level for all the drivers and teams.
It probably didn't appear the way to you behind the wheel, but from the outside looking in, Richmond seemed pretty tame for a short track. Do you think that the anxiety will be elevated going into Bristol just because it is a cutoff?
Well, the anxiety will be higher, the nerves, of course, and just the overall, the ambiance of the excitement. But in all reality, everybody's got so much riding on the line, and everybody's got to protect their race car and get the points that they can and not run into somebody and get a fender rub. That's what led to Richmond's, I guess, lack of excitement. And that could end up happening at Bristol, which then that's a question of, well, wait a minute, maybe we need to move this race back to August when guys aren't necessarily worried about points as much, and that they can let the rough edges drag and dump somebody or wreck some cars and not have to pay such a big points penalty. That's the difference in playoff races, is everybody's making sure they're getting every point possible, and therefore they're driving more cautiously.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Our next question is going to come from Dustin Long. Go ahead with the question, Dustin.
Kurt, the next round begins with Las Vegas, and that's one of the races where it was held before the pandemic and the pause. Typically, we would hear you guys talk about, drivers, crew chiefs talk about how much things have changed in that period of time. Have things changed as greatly because of the challenges this season? Or how different will Vegas be this time compared to the Vegas race that was held before the season was paused?
First things first is this race is in 100-degree temperatures, where the spring race is in usually 60 to 70-degree temperature. And so that's a huge difference all in its own. Then you get into the real nuts and bolts of 2020, and that's where we haven't had practice. And that's where more things are done on simulation models and engineering models for the baseline setups. And that seems to have fallen into some teams' hands, and it seems to have handcuffed other teams. And we can say that even within the same, garage area, as far as Gibbs, we've got Hamlin with a ton of wins and my little brother with none. Guys like Harvick have a ton of wins, and all of the rest of Stewart-Haas has one. So it works some ways to be a positive, other ways that it doesn't work out as well. Even like Penske with Keselowski running well, and Blaney's right on that line of being eliminated. So it's hard to really say. I mean, what happened back in March seems like 2 years ago. And then also things trend in tech inspection as well on what things were going on in March versus what's happening here in September.
And also, people talk about that next round. The feeling is you need to win at Las Vegas because of the uncertainty of Talladega and the Roval. Is that almost the wrong approach to take and look at, there's wild card potential at Talladega and the Roval, but those are also opportunities per se?
Yeah, I mean, there's 100 different philosophies or different ways to look at it. Each team has their own agenda. There's definitely the championship front runners. There's the guys that need to throw the Hail Marys and try to gamble on a pit stop. You're going to see some of that, at Bristol for this cutoff race. Guys might just do 2 tires and stay out and try to muscle their way to the end. There could be that same thing at Vegas where you come in just for fuel only and try to top it off, even though you can't even make it to the end, but you try to use that strategy to get some points or to get a win. So it's really hard to really play out all the scenarios. You just got to race with what your strengths are. And some teams have different strengths in different areas.
Thank you.
Our next question is going to come from Eric Smith. Go ahead with the question, Eric.
Yeah, thanks. Kurt, you kind of mentioned with like baseline setups, is this track going to be more difficult? Like you said, with like in the past, you know what you had, but you had the PJ1 traction compound in the summer All-Star race made it slick. Is Is this a tough track to get the baseline set up right, especially with you're starting 13th and you're around the guys that you need some stage points in stage one?
It seems like it's tougher with the spray and how much they spray or where they spray it. That's been the biggest adjustment. It's hard to really get into the full jargon of the level of detail on what an engineer has to do to match a racetrack surface. But then when you throw in inconsistencies from the track and the spray that they're using and how much chemical versus how much water they mixed in or how much rain is hitting the track right now, in years past, to win Bristol, you would set up for lap 250. You would set up for halfway, and you would just try to get through the first half of the race the best that you could. But you can't do that anymore with it being the playoffs and with stage points. So you gotta go hard right away, but you got to build in that adjustability to be able to be that guy at the end that can win as well.
And I guess piggyback on how hard is it, and how much input have you had with Matt this week going into this race with that baseline, knowing that, as you said, like, you need the points at the start? Just, has there been a lot of input between you guys? I know during a pandemic, it's kind of hard to meet in the shop. And how much input, I guess, have you had with Matt this week?
My phone said I have a new operating system that I can download, and I'm scared to do that because I have so many digital meetings and so many calendar items of this department, that department. Hendrick Engines was checking in on some of the horsepower levels. There's these new departments of communication and open lines. I mean, it's all hands on deck right now. And so we're just staying on top of it the best way we can. Even I asked the shock department yesterday to have shocks that can have compression and rebound adjustable shocks, in case we are off on our setup and we have to go aggressive with changes. And the only time that you're able to really do that is if you're the last car in the lead lap on a pit stop or something. You got to be ready for all case scenarios right now.
Thanks, Kurt. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Kurt, good luck with that outdated operating system, but good luck this weekend at Bristol.
All right, thank you. I might wait till Sunday to download it.
Good deal. Take care.